freedom, pass from hand to yearning hand, and the vision of our fathers spread hope throughout this land, as the dream some fought and died for in my heart becomes my own. I will strive to keep her promise, America, my home. America, America, may God bless America, and freedom reign across America, my home. From the shorelines to the prairies, to the cities great and small, we have reaped the fruits of justice and liberty for all.
So with deep appreciation for the blessings of freedom that we know in this great and wonderful land of ours, I'm Dr. George Simon, welcoming you to another edition of Character Matters. This is a program where we talk about what I consider to be the defining issue of our time, the character crisis that we face and that affects so much of our lives, so many areas of our lives. And if you'd like to join the conversation today, we'd love to have you do so. Give us a call at 718-717-8296. That's 718-717-8296. Happy to take your call. We're having some technical difficulty at my end today at my home studio. I have had a computer lockup. We had a storm here not too long ago, and it seemed to mess things up. So I'm having to log in from some inferior equipment, and the quality may not be quite where it needs to be. If you're having difficulty with the transmission, I apologize for that. But we still should be able to carry on. I'm doing my best to multitask here and try and get things working as best as I can. But I apologize for any quality, any poor quality to the broadcast tonight. Nonetheless, if you want to give us a call and join the conversation, we're going to have an interesting conversation on the topic of narcissism tonight, going along with the series of articles that I have posted on my blog at manipulative-people.com. So it should be an interesting conversation. And if you want to join it, if you've dealt with a narcissistic individual, if you have someone like that in your life, you had a prior relationship with someone like that, or there's anything else you'd like to talk about related to the topic, perhaps you have a question or two to ask, perhaps you have a story to share, give us a call at 718-717-8296. I'll be happy to take your call. Well, I had an interesting experience over the week, this past week. I received a call unexpectedly from a reporter with the BBC World Service who wanted to talk with me about the aspect of narcissism that is getting so much attention these days. It's very interesting. In its infinite wisdom, the official manual, diagnostic manual of the American Psychiatric Association, the official manual that most clinicians use, most mental health professionals use, to diagnose and treat mental disturbances and disorders. In their infinite wisdom, they chose to pretty much relegate to unofficial status the disorder, narcissistic personality disorder, which had been with us for a long time. And a lot of folks were upset by that because it seemed to imply that folks with this disorder don't exist, when in fact anybody who's had to deal with a narcissist, a full-blown narcissist, a person with that disorder knows what a nightmare it can be. So the decision by the committee that makes these decisions outraged some, but there's really more to the story than that. What the committee did was kind of right-minded in a sense, but it was, I think, short-sighted in the long run because of how it appeared to not recognize the severity and the seriousness of the problems caused by people who have narcissistic personality traits or who are so solidly narcissistic that they truly do qualify for a diagnosis of narcissistic personality disorder. But the right-mindedness of the committee had to do with this. What they're beginning to recognize is that character disturbance itself exists along a continuum. I've maintained this for a long time, and I've written about it in both my books, In Sheep's Clothing and in Character Disturbance. In Character Disturbance, I make the point very emphatically that not only does character disturbance exist along a continuum of quality, that being that on one end of the continuum, you have folks that I consider to be more neurotic, and on the other end of the continuum, folks that tend to be more disturbed in character. So that's the quality dimension of the continuum. But it's also a continuum of severity. We know that folks have significant character problems, although they might not qualify for a diagnosis of disorder, of personality disorder or character disorder per se. That doesn't mean they're not trouble. That doesn't mean they don't cause problems for relationships. But it means that they are not so impaired in their functioning that they can't function, or that they cause such distress in the workplace, in their relationships or whatnot, that they basically can't function. So by definition, many people have character disturbance, very disturbing character traits, in fact, and don't qualify by the rigid standards that we have for these things. They don't qualify for a diagnosis of a personality or a character disorder. And this is something that the committee was recognizing. They were also recognizing something else that I've held for a long time and have written about in both my books, In Sheep's Clothing and in Character Disturbance. Actually, I wrote about it a little bit in my book, The Judas Syndrome, as well. And that is that in addition to the fact that there's this continuum with respect to character disturbance, there's also a dimensionality to personality disturbances of every type. There are various character traits, various personality traits that people have, and these contribute to their overall personality formation. And sometimes a particular trait can be quite strong and quite and quite a factor in the person's inability to cope well. And these dimensions of personality, these traits of personality, can factor into a number of disorders. For example, individuals with borderline personality disorder many times have many dependent personality traits, or sometimes they have many antisocial traits. Sometimes they have narcissistic traits. And each one of these dimensions of personality really affects the overall kind of personality functioning of the individual. So persons who have BPD, borderline personality disorder, if their dominant traits happen to be of the narcissistic type, they are very, very different in the way they relate to others, and they are very different in the kinds of problems that they have, as opposed to, say, the more emotionally dependent borderlines who are clingy, needy, more often passive, more often passively manipulative than other personality types. So there are these dimensions of personality, and that's what the committee that oversees the publication of the official diagnostic manual was trying to capture in their new formulations. Unfortunately, in so doing, incorrectly recognizing that narcissism is a dimension of personality that affects a wide variety of personality types, not necessarily disorders. In recognizing that, and then saying, therefore, that it would be too difficult to define a specific narcissistic personality disorder, they went too far, and they erred, I believe, because there are individuals who lack other negative personality traits, who are purely and simply narcissistic, and whose narcissism is of the degree and of the quality that it causes big problems in their lives. And they well deserve a personality disorder diagnosis. We can still confer that, by the way, even though it's not listed among the official categories. We can still do that as clinicians. So folks need not fret about that. But it was an unfortunate circumstance that in its infinite wisdom in capturing the dimensionality of personality, the committee saw fit to kind of defrock, so to speak, NPD, as serious a disorder as it is, and as much havoc as it plays in so many people's lives. Well, folks, I'm going to pause here for just a second, because I think that I have been able to resolve some of the technical difficulties plaguing the broadcast, and I'm going to try to switch to some better media here. So if you'll give me a moment, please, I'm going to do my best to do that. We'll see if I can join the conversation here. If I can do that, I hope I can. It may take me a minute to disconnect and reconnect, so I'm going to do that. You may hear some silence for just a moment. And I think we should be live. Hopefully we are, and hopefully we're on the air with a with good audio now, and no more technical problems. I hope that's the case. At any rate, If anybody notices that we are having problems, I'd appreciate a call in to let us know. But I think we should be all right now, and I apologize for the earlier difficulties. We had some pretty massive technical problems at my end, but we should be okay now. At least I hope that's the case. And if you want to join the conversation, give us a call at 718-717-8296. That's 718-717-8296. We're talking about narcissism tonight, and we're talking especially about the vast spectrum of personality and character disorders where narcissism is a big feature. If you've dealt with somebody who's got narcissistic traits or who had narcissistic traits or may have been a narcissistic personality disorder, you know very well what kind of difficulty you had, and I'm sure the listeners would love to hear from you, like to have the benefit of your wisdom, and if you have a question about narcissistic personality disorder, I'm happy to take your call about that as well at 718-717-8296. I received a call earlier in the week from a lady who was wanting to take issue with me, actually, about something I'd written about in one of my articles and in one of my books, where I asserted that that narcissistic individuals of the grandiose type, we now know that there are two types of narcissism. It's really been borne out in the recent research. When I first wrote In Sheep's Clothing and when I first wrote Character Disturbance, we did not have the research that validates a perspective that I actually advanced in those books. I was out on a limb there, but I saw something in my clinical practice that I did my own case study research on, and I came up with the hypothesis that there were basically two types of narcissists. One I called the more neurotic type, the classical type. In classical thinking, the thinking was that narcissists were basically insecure underneath folks. They were struggling with low self-esteem, and that they were compensating for their low self-esteem with the bravado that they presented, and we now know that that's not always the case. We now know that some narcissists are not compensating for anything. In their bravado, in their grandiosity, in their inflated sense of self, they really do feel that way. They sincerely feel that way. It's not an unconscious compensation for anything. It's not a mask they wear. It's a sincere, albeit nearly delusional belief. They really, truly do believe that they are great, superior, above others, and this creates really big problems. And the issue this lady was taking with me is I mentioned in one of my articles, and I mentioned in my books, that this inflated ego can take place in either individuals who have some kind of track record of accomplishment and success, or it can happen in the case of individuals who have absolutely nothing to show for themselves. It really doesn't matter. There are some narcissists who actually have done wonderful things and who have, at least in some ways, some justification for thinking about themselves as perhaps superior in some ways to others, simply because of what they've managed to do. But for the narcissist, it always goes too far, and the point that I make in both my books that very few others make
is that what's at the core of the problem for narcissists is they don't afford any credit for their successes when they do have them. They don't afford any credit to any what I call, quote, higher power, end quote. Any fortuitous circumstance, they don't give any credit to being in the right place at the right time, to luck. They don't give any credit to the natural gifts that they were endowed with, either by nature or by a god. They don't, whether they verbalize a belief in it or not is irrelevant. They don't believe in a god. Truly, they don't. They might say they do. They don't. They don't believe in any kind of higher power. When they're looking for the highest power that they can think of to govern their lives, all they have to do is look in the mirror, and there is that power staring right back at them. That's how they see things. So the problem is, the reason that they inflate, they get big heads and they have these inflated egos, is they don't ascribe any credit to anything outside of themselves. They don't recognize anything higher. They don't recognize the support of people who got them to where they are. They might give lip service to it. I know. I'm thinking of one person in particular right now. I'm not going to mention any names. Who is a classic narcissist, classic, and who says all the right things, about how he values people, how he loves people, and how he treasures those that work for him, that help make him the success that he is. This is all lip service. In the heart of the narcissist, there is no room for anybody but them. They might say all the right things, but they are an entity unto themselves. There is no one or anything greater. And they believe that sincerely, the grandiose type narcissist does. It's not an act. It's not a stage. It's not a facade. They really do think they're all that. And they're dangerous because of that. Because they're chronically overestimating their worth and their capabilities. Now, I do know some individuals who have very serious narcissistic traits in their personality, but who are also determined to win. And because they're determined to win, they do fairly well in the free marketplace. They do fairly well in free systems where they have some degree of protection. Many of these folks have gone bankrupt any number of times. But they learn from their mistakes. They don't acknowledge them except maybe through lip service once again. They might give lip service to them. But they take mental note for sure. They might not acknowledge weakness or error to someone else. But they certainly take knowledge of it, and they course correct because they're determined to win. But then when they finally do, once again, the credit all goes to them. And so once again, they get an awfully big head. This is the way it is with narcissists. And in our culture, because of the way our system works and because of how it rewards individuals and why it rewards individuals, how we earn our various rewards in our culture, this kind of narcissism is really encouraged these days. So there's a lot of it. There are a lot of big-headed people out there who think an awful lot of themselves and who don't think an awful lot of you. And one of them is on the national stage right now. And one of the ways you can tell this narcissism is at work is this almost juvenile, constant comparison of I'm better than the other guy, and always demeaning the other guy, and always attempting to prove one's superiority. All you have to do is listen to the rhetoric. It's always about how I can do it better, and the other guy stinks, or the other lady stinks. And whenever an issue is brought up, it always reverts to that. Just listen carefully. You'll hear it each time. The issue gets sidestepped. It always goes to, well, I can handle it better. And so-and-so screwed up at this and screwed up at that, or has this not going for them, or has that not going for them. But me, trust me. Trust me. I know I'm great. Trust me, you'll see I'm great. Just give me the job. You'll see what I can do with it. And that kind of moxie, is sometimes pretty attractive to people. I have to say, there are an awful lot of folks, unfortunately, right now in the United States of America who are just sick and tired of just about everything. They're fed up. They're the folks that I talk about in my book, Character Disturbance, and in the Judas Syndrome. They're the folks that have been carrying the weight of the world literally on their shoulders for a long time. These are the unsung heroes who put on their shoes and socks every day, and who, get it together, get the kids breakfast, make the coffee, go out, do an honest day's work, pay their bills, pay their taxes, make their civic contributions, do their duty, do everything that is demanded of them and more, and do it as best they can with a smile, and who literally get tromped on, and who get paid very little regard. And not only that, many don't get paid very well for what they do. They're the unsung heroes. And they're tired of being basically unrecognized. And they're looking for a champion. And the atmosphere is just so ripe for a person with that can-do attitude and some kind of track record, and who speaks to the frustration of people and can demagogue the issue. But Lord help us. Lord help us if another person with a big fat ego, with an inflated ego, rises to the helms of our government. Lord help us. We've seen enough ego. What we haven't seen is enough humble regard for the people being governed. Enough humble regard for those folks that carry the burden every day. At the beginning and the end of the program, you hear this theme song that my wife and I wrote. And I know I've talked about it before, but you're probably going to hear me talk about it again from time to time. Maybe I'll sound like a broken record, but this country was founded on the backs of decent people with some ideals. The principles on which we are founded and upon which we can honor are noble principles. We haven't always lived up to them. There have been plenty of times in our history when we have not. Some really shameful times in our history We've done some really bad things, even at our founding. We did some really cruel things to a lot of folks who didn't deserve it. But there have also been some times where we lived up to those ideals. There have also been some times when we rose to the kind of national character that we had within us because each one of us found within us the character necessary to build a great society. There have been some times when we had some really remarkable leadership. And there have been some times that we've had leaders who put the welfare of the country and put the welfare of each individual in the country ahead of their own ambition. That's happened. And it surely needs to happen again. The last thing we need is another megalomaniac in the White House or in the Congress or the Senate. We've had enough power mongering. Enough. And it's so sad to me. It is so sad to me what we have allowed to happen incrementally. And it all begins with character. It all begins there. And unfortunately, for the last, I'd say 25 or 30 years, we've been in an age that really fosters narcissism. It encourages it. It encourages a fair degree of egocentricity. It's a me-centered kind of culture. Me, 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 me. So it encourages it, and then it actually reinforces it, rewards it in certain areas, especially in business and in politics, in professional sports. You know, I was probably one of the weakest football players on my high school team. Probably. But I remember so vividly that the most character-building aspect of playing the game was that sense of team. And anybody who's played a team sport knows there's the old adage, there is no I in team. A good player recognizes that they don't do it alone. You know, the glory guy is the guy that gets the ball, whether it's passed to him or handed off to him, and gets to move the ball down the field and maybe score. But he can't get there by himself. It's not possible. People who are slamming against one another have to open gaps to make running room. And they have to do that time and time again, and get up and get knocked down time and time again. It takes a team. It takes everybody. And so there was a time when nobody thought about grandstanding, doing dances. And there were even penalties for throwing a party for yourself because you did this or you did that. It was regarded as unsportsmanlike. I don't know how many people can remember those days. They seem so far away now. It's like a bygone era. We have been in the me era for so long now that we barely notice the change because it's been with us so long. We've habituated to it. It wasn't always like this. I can also remember a time when there was a sense of real community, when you knew your neighbors, when you could trust your neighbors, when you could send your kids out to play, and kids could go by themselves with each other to the park and play, even in the absence of adult supervision, because somebody would be there to be responsible, even if it were only another child. Things have changed a lot culturally. Some of those changes have been good. Some of those changes have been good. Hopefully, it's true that we have less bigotry than we used to. Hopefully, it's true that we even have less racism than we used to. At least in many places we do. But we also, unfortunately, have had a lot of cultural values contribute to an increase in self-focus. And we have so overvalued the individual, I believe, that we have inadvertently focused too much self-focus and not enough community-mindedness. We're in this together, whether we like it or not, folks. Whether we like it or not, this is a family. It is. We're all in this together, and we will either make it together or we will go down together. And that's just the way it is, whether we choose to recognize it or not. Maybe you agree, maybe you disagree. Maybe you want to make another comment, maybe you don't. But if you want to give us a call and join the conversation, give us a call at 718-717-8296. That's 718-717-8296. So at any rate, I was earlier, I started out by saying that I'd gotten a call from a reporter from the BBC World News Service, and we were talking about this dimension of narcissism that has to do with such extreme self-centeredness that basically the person has disregard for everything around them, for people, and for the impact of their behavior on others. Because after all, it's all about them. And that's where I believe that the folks at the American Psychiatric Association erred when they defrocked the narcissistic personality disorder. Because even though they correctly recognize that narcissism is a dimension of many different personality disorders, there are individuals who are purely narcissistic, and they are disordered because they so passively disregard everyone and everything else. It's not particularly that they're out to hurt you, it's that they don't pay any regard to you. It's like you don't exist. It's so all about them that they don't consider you. It's not that they're out specifically to get you. It's that they don't think of you because they're only thinking of them. There's a difference. There are some narcissistic individuals who go beyond that and who really are out to get you. They're out to manipulate you, out to con you, out to abuse you, out to exploit you. But that goes beyond narcissism. That goes into other different personality and character disturbances. That goes into other character disorders. The pure narcissist is not an active aggressor, but rather a passive disregarder. You're not on their radar because it's just so all about them. Their world is them. What they want, what they need, what they think they have coming. And they're not about the business of trying to prove they're superior at someone else's expense. They already know they are, especially if they're the grandiose type. They already have this sense that they are above other folks. And because they have this sense that they're above other folks, they feel entitled. They feel entitled to do as they please. They are, quote unquote, above the rules. So, I know that many folks have been stung in their interpersonal relationships or have been in bad situations that they barely could stand in their working environments. Some have called or written me to tell me that they just had to move on because they were in a job where they just could not deal with a narcissist any further. So I know what kind of problem it is, even though in its infinite wisdom, the American Psychiatric Association has decided that we will no longer consider narcissistic personality disorders as an official classification. But narcissists are out there, and I'm writing about them on my blog at manipulative-people.com in a new series of articles. The first two flagship articles occurred last week and the week before, and I will have at least 3 or 4 more articles in the series before the series is wrapped up. I'll also be talking about how the narcissistic dimension factors into a lot of other personality disturbances. So I invite you to visit the manipulative-people.com blog. That's www.manipulative-people.com. I also invite you to avail yourself of my books, In Sheep's Clothing, Understanding and Dealing with Manipulative People, and my book, Character Disturbance, The Phenomenon of Our Age, my in-depth study of all the kinds of disturbed characters that you're likely to meet in your life and what they're really like, how they really operate, how they sometimes get the better of you, what you can do about it, and most especially, what to look for in the way of help when you're seeking help, either for yourself, for the person with the character disturbance, for you as a couple, or just to recover from such a relationship. Character disturbance is a unique phenomenon, and not every mental health professional is equally trained or equally equipped or equally able because of their theoretical orientation to deal with the problem effectively. So character disturbance gives you all that information plus what to look for in the way of getting the necessary help. And then I also invite you to visit the other blog that I write for at the blog site Psychology, Philosophy, and Real Life at the URL www.counselingwith2lsresource.com. That's counselingresource.com. I have an article each week on that site as well. So I invite you to visit those sites for my articles on various timely topics, mostly related to character disturbance. On the Manipulative-People blog, I write exclusively about character disturbance. And on the other blog, I write about a variety of topics, but quite frequently about character disturbance. So avail yourselves of those two sites, my books. Also, I have another book upcoming. It should be released in the early spring called How Did We End Up Here? It's a co-authored book with Catherine Armistead, another PhD who has been an invaluable co-writer in this effort to explain what people are going through in this character disordered world of ours. The subtitle of the book is Surviving and Thriving in a Character Disordered World. And it's all about how we got here as a society and a culture, how you ended up in the relationship you did, why you find yourself in the position you did, what you can do to avoid a similar pitfall in the future, and once again, what to look for in the way of help. So it's a really timely book for our time. That's How Did We End Up Here? And it will be available, as I said, in the early spring. And then a big announcement, and information will be on. Some information is already on my blog site. It was put as a part of the article I wrote for Friday's post on the manipulative-people.com blog. Professional training workshops. Workshops start in January of next year. My first workshop will be in Sioux City, South Dakota. And then another one in Urbandale, Iowa. And then the day following in Omaha, Nebraska. So we have 3 workshops in the middle of January, and the detailed information is on my blog site at manipulative-people.com. That's the first of some monthly training workshops for professionals. Now, these are professional workshops, which means they are primarily designed for mental health professionals of all types, nurses, counselors, licensed counselors, social workers, marriage and family therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists, all the allied mental health professionals. This is what these workshops will be designed for. But anyone can come. But because they're for professionals and because the amount of information will be slightly more technical, it might not be the most appropriate thing for a lay person to attend. And not only that, professional workshops tend to be priced a lot higher, and also the workshops tend to be a little longer to provide continuing education credits for the attendees. So it might not be the best experience if you want to attend one of these workshops, to come to one of these professional workshops, but they are open to everybody, and information will be available on my blog site. Like I said, some limited information has already been posted as to the dates and locations, but further registration information and locations that'll be posted later this week, so look for that at the manipulative-people.com website. I'll know February's locations in a couple of weeks, and I'll be posting that. And I'll be doing some workshops every single month over the next year, usually the third week of the month, and I'll be traveling all around the country. So I'll hopefully have more information to post for you on these, and I hope I see some of you who listen regularly at one of these workshops. It'll be fun. In the meantime, we're getting close to the end of the hour here, so once again, I want to invite anybody who wants to contribute something to the program tonight. If you have dealt with a narcissistic individual, if you have a question or a comment, if you want to share something of your personal experience, if you have an issue or a bone you want to pick with me with respect to something I've written on the topic or on any other topic, give us a call at 718-717-8296. That's 718-717-8296. I think we have about 5 or 6 minutes where I could take a call or two if you want to join the conversation. I also want to say that in addition to the workshops over the next year, there are likely to be some tapings at several of the workshops that will end up on the web as webinars, and I'll have some information for you about that when the case occurs. So be looking for more information on the website about that. I'm real happy about that. I'm also planning some small changes to the program. I'd like to encourage more dialogue on the program, more direct feedback to callers about handling situations. I don't want this to turn into a kind of Dr. Laura type advice format, but I do know that there are some folks who would like at least some specific guidance about how to deal with some of the problem characters in their lives. So, in addition to the topics that I address, I want to make sure that we open the dialogue for anybody who's currently in a situation that they really want to better understand and is looking for some guidance. We're not going to do therapy over the air. We're not going to give direct, specific advice about how to address how to address every specific aspect of the difficulties you may be having. But there are some principles of dealing with disturbed characters that I write about and I talk about in my workshops and that I blog about in my articles on the internet that we can amplify on. And in so doing, might be able to give you a good sense of direction about how to handle a situation that you might find yourself in, especially if you're dealing with a disturbed character of some type. So there'll be some changes to the format of the program in that respect, and I encourage folks who are having difficulties and who don't mind kind of airing their laundry a little bit. You don't have to give your name. I rarely ask for a name. Some people have given their name or given a name. You don't have to actually give your real name if you don't want to. But generally when I answer calls, I don't identify anyone. And that's because some people might be a little bit nervous about sharing some things and have someone know who it is that's calling. So unless somebody wants to reveal that, that's fine. But in any case, I want you to feel free to call in. Once again, always the number is 718-717-8296. And as the format of the program changes slightly, perhaps we'll have more callers who want to risk basically sharing their story, so to speak, and getting some more specific feedback or guidance, at least in the principles that I advocate in my books and other writings for dealing with people with character disturbances of one type or another. Well, here we are again, folks, at a couple of minutes before the end of the program tonight. I just want to say, this is the time of the year when I get to feeling really pretty sentimental about a lot of things. We have a lot to be grateful for. We still have an awful lot to be grateful for. We enjoy an awful lot in this country. And it's that season, it's that time where where many of us begin to get open in our hearts and realize our community's needs, and we become more generous. And we see those red pails that the Salvation Army puts out, and maybe we put a few coins in, or we donate through our churches or our other helping institutions. We really need to build our sense of community. And not only that, we need to build it in such a way that it once again fosters and rewards the kind of character that we need to carry us through. When we are each individually of the kind of character that honors the ideals that we at least give lip service to sometimes, when each one of us as individuals has that level of integrity, of character, that we should all aspire to, then as a country, we will be great in character again. We'll have the national character that we so sorely need. So once again, I ask you to join me in this crusade and to tune in again next week for another edition of Character Matters, where we'll be talking about these issues once again. And I appreciate you tuning in, and I hope that you'll avail yourself of the blog at manipulative-people.com and my books. Take care.